This is GKW. Welcome to another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. I'm Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. With me tonight, we have Brian Rowitz from ESPN West Palm, Jonathan Hood. He's busy. He's got other things going on. He's on assignment tonight. But we're still going to have a great show because there are a lot of great things as we build towards Backlash in France this weekend. Also AEW. Now we've entered really the month of one of their biggest pay-per-views with Double or Nothing as they've revealed some of those matches. And that's where we begin tonight in AEW. Last week, we didn't have a chance to talk a lot about it. We didn't have a regular show, did our own draft around the NFL draft. And then last Wednesday, Tony Khan took the bump of the century that resulted in him wearing a neck brace during the NFL draft, which
T's and P's with him.
You know, hey, however you feel about Tony Khan, that's just genius promoting, where he's sitting in the war room and you've got Rich Eisen talking about AEW during the NFL draft on NFL Network. We look at those guys. We look at the Young Bucks who have now folded in the scapegoats in Jack Perry. Are we far enough now removed, about a month or so ago, from the tapes being revealed, the CM Punk backstage tapes? At the time, I think most of us were like, I don't know if this is going to be worth it. But can we change our tune on that? Was it worth it for AEW to release the tapes?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, we were pretty adamant against it, saying it was a dumb decision. This was before even New Japan. I remember we talked about the fact that, hey, New Japan's going to be in Chicago this week. Jack Perry's going to be on that show. That will draw some heat, but that's not AEW's bottom line. Now, here we are a few weeks later. We should have had some patience because I think it is a win. Like, the heat right now on the Elite and putting Tony Khan front and center and him taking that bump, which was so devastating for his neck. Like, it's a win. And the fact that even last night you get Okada and Kenny with the face-to-face and they take out Kenny, it's hard to say it's not a win at this point.
Shad Khan.
Yes.
Was the MVP of the entire segment.
I wonder how much he knew about this.
Oh, nothing, right? Like, Tony just had to go, hey, Dad, hey, just come out and pretend to be concerned for me, right? Like, that's all the explanation that happened. And Shad's, like, standing in the middle of the ring. Clearly doesn't know what to do with his hands. It's perfect. It is pro wrestling at its finest.
And then you get that one wrestler, I don't even know who he was, but he started, like, freaking out, like, oh, it's Shad Khan right now. Like, he didn't know what to do with himself.
I still wonder if they could have gotten here because the Bucks had plenty of heat on them before the tapes came out. Sure. And I still think you could have gotten here without releasing the tape because, again, you pop the rating for a guy that you're not making money off of. And I think you still run the risk of every time Jack Perry comes out now, and I think there were some faint ones last night when he was backstage with Renee, and they kind of cut it out unless I was hearing things. CM Punk chance. You don't want CM Punk chance on your show when he is working for the other place. So I still don't know if it necessarily was a win because I think you still could have gotten here with, again, he was already calling himself the scapegoat. He had ripped up his AEW contract, clearly upset with Tony Khan. I think you could have told a similar story without them releasing the tapes, right? And, I just think you could have gotten there because
I just don't know the Jack Perry part though. Like him coming back without the tapes, without a reset of hey, this is why he's been gone. I think that takes away from it a little bit.
But I guess it's such a niche and more of an internet audience, I think, than WWE. Like I feel like 85% of the audience for AEW is very aware of what's going on with Jack Perry. Like I feel like it's higher than the average just casual wrestling fan, right? Because it's pretty inside, it gets pretty deep. But I feel like enough people would have known. Where again, just by calling him the scapegoat, I think you would have known. But again, it does retelling the story and resetting it. I guess there is a value to there, but I still. Again, there's just a part of me, you popped a rating with a guy that's no longer with your company. That's the part that just is still sitting. And again, maybe there's no other way to tell the story. I'm just curious, and I'm sitting here thinking of, okay, are the tapes a win? I just wonder, all right, is there a way you could have gotten this much heat? And I think ultimately they could have, because the tapes are so far gone now with what they've done the last 2 weeks.
Right.
By doing the Tony Khan, it's the Khan driver, right? I think that's what he was trying to tell everybody during his interviews last Friday. I forgot that they had renamed it from the Meltzer driver. But between attacking Tony and then Tony showing up to start the show, them cutting Tony off, and then attacking Kenny at the end of the show, like I feel like all that heat, you didn't need the tapes to establish it, because especially with Kenny. Yeah. Like Kenny came out, cut a very impassioned, great promo, and salute to the guy for deciding that, you know what, it's worth risking it all for one last Snapdragon suplex. So, salute to you, Kenny Omega, for deciding that. But by attacking Kenny after he cut that promo, like that heat is, I don't think it's any less hot.
Sure.
Because of who Kenny is, right? Like, I feel like they've done a good job telling the story since. So that's what makes me wonder, was releasing the tapes the win?
Yeah, I think that part's fair. Because, the Kenny part last night, like when he gave the suplex, I was like, should he be doing that? Like, I was concerned a little bit. And then even like the stretcher spot, shout out YouTube TV, by the way. I thought they were better at not cutting off endings. They're not. But they also found a new way last night as they cut off the ending to Dynamite. I was like, well, Rampage is right after. I'm good to go. Switch the Rampage recording, and that one is starting later and, missed all that. So YouTube is where I had to watch all that. But I think there's something. Jack Perry, I think, is ultimately going to be the one that maybe needs a singles title. Like, he's the only one in the group without gold right now. And the tapes are that sort of, look, this is why he's out. This adds to the scapegoat thing, because even the tearing up the contract, that wasn't on AEW TV. That was on New Japan. So this was a way to tell that story. And that's why I think ultimately that helps him in that regard.
Yeah. I don't know what championship he ends up winning, because I think everything's kind of spoken for right now.
Yeah.
Because, we know where the international titles are going to end up, around the waist of Will Ospreay.
Yes.
I mean, you're not having Ospreay take his first AEW loss. No offense to Roderick Strong,
right.
He's done some really good work, but like, it's Will bleeping Ospreay.
TNT, it looks like we're going Malachi versus Copeland at Double or
Nothing. Like that's all tied up.
Malachi wins that?
Probably. I mean, they're doing I think they're doing a really good job of telling. But as much as we criticize AEW for storytelling, like last night was very good storytelling from AEW. Again, Malachi in Cope's ear of, do it. And then Murphy getting up like, hit me. Come on, let's do it. Let's do this. Was fantastic. Like, we'll get to it later. Swerve versus Christian was great. And of course, what they're doing with the Elite and the new Elites, with basically, I guess, replacing both Hangman and Kenny Omega with the Rainmaker and the Scapegoat, has been fantastic. So I don't know, I guess you could throw an ROH title on him. I'm not quite sure who's
always a good fallback.
Yes, that's always a thing that they can fall back on. But so I don't know if he gets a championship. I mean, it'd be nice, I guess, for him to have one, because he's the only one without any gold. But I'm not quite sure how they accomplished that.
Because so how much is the payoff? Like, that's the thing. Like, the one-on-one, I feel like it's Okada Kenny again, because you can just pencil that anytime, anywhere, whenever we get Kenny. Because he said a couple months last night, we actually don't know when he's going to be cleared. But, like, who gives the comeuppance to Jack Perry?
Shad.
Oh, okay. That'd be a good one. Kenny hit a Canadian destroyer like Bad Bunny, though.
Probably not.
I don't know. I'm willing to see.
Shad avenging his boy. Like, that's the ultimate story. After that, I'm not quite sure, because obviously, FTR is still kind of in the story, coming in for different saves. I'm not quite sure where, and look, again, maybe we just need to be more patient with it, and an answer will arise. And again, that's why, is it Samoa Joe? Like, but again, like, whoever it ends up being, because you showed the tapes, it almost seems like they're standing up for CM Punk.
Right.
So that's why I say Joe. So again, that's why the tape thing makes it just kind of a little more murky than it absolutely needed to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you have Swerve sort of mentioning it last night also, like taking shots at the Bucks, and as part of that segment, like, Hangman, like, I don't know when he's back. Like,
it could be Hangman, and look, who knows? It could even be Kenny, who I'm assuming is closer to returning than we think, right? Like,
I mean, we hope so, right? After what we saw last night.
Well, based on, again, I was joking when I saluted him for deciding to risk it all for a Snapdragon suplex, but based on the promo, like, I bought in to what he said, and then he took some bumps and did some moves. I'm like, okay, I'm not quite sure what to believe right now, because now I'm worried about getting worked, right? And obviously,
like that chair shot, like we saw with the Tony Pile driver, and I saw someone tweet, it was like a newborn baby. Like, you gently put him down. They protected him. That chair shot to the gut last night was not
very similar to when Bubba Ray power bombs Mae Young, for example. Very similar, right? Like, very similar. Like, Mae was never in actually any danger there. So, yes. And, of course, because Tony's not a professional wrestler, you protect him at all costs.
So you have that on one hand, and then you have the chair shot last night to Kenny where it looked like they put it in there. Like, that wasn't as protected. So to your point, I guess he's close to being cleared. Is it Vegas? I don't know, but I hope he's close.
Yeah, again, I hope he's – first and foremost, I hope he's okay. And diverticulitis can range from, in levels of seriousness. Mm-hmm. The only other person in this world that I know has really dealt with it is Brock Lesnar, who dealt with it when he was UFC, obviously then came back to WWE and was able to, have zero concerns when he was working for a decade plus after he returned to the WWE for a second stint. So I'm hoping it's more along that lines, and they're using this as, hey, this is like worst case scenario, some of the diverticulitis stuff, and Kenny was pretty close to that, never actually got there. So, you can kind of blur the lines of reality, and I'm hoping that he's okay. But based on, again, if we're taking him at his word during the promo, Vegas isn't in the cards.
Right. He said a couple months, and that could just be, again, him getting us off the path. But do we have to wait for Wembley? Like, that's the thing. Like, where is the payoff with this? Because I know we're going to say, oh, they're just rehashing the NWO, which whatever. It's pro wrestling. They steal from each other all the time. But you ultimately need that good guy. Like, if this is the bad guy, you need a good guy to fight them off. And I don't see who that is right now. Like, FTR is involved, but they just lost the match to the Bucks. Like, and again, patience, maybe that's all it takes, but I'm curious to see who that is right now.
Yeah, it's, but again, like, figuring out who that is going to be, like, they've got to still continue to establish themselves, right? Before we run into that ultimate hero that gives them their comeuppance. Like, the Bucks got to go out there and cheat to win and defend those tag championships a couple of times. Okada's got to be able to go out there and do the same thing. Jack Perry's got to get a couple of wins, get a couple of matches under his belt at AEW to kind of build himself up before, again, you build him up so then you can just knock him down. I don't know. I don't know if it's Danielson on his way out. I don't know. Who knows who ends up being it? I guess Danielson dealing with a little bit of an injury right now as well. Could be
that stopped him before.
Yeah. Could be the actual savior of AEW. Could be Mox. Right? Sure. Like, you could get him involved at some point.
It's the thing is, though, like, they're hitting all the notes right now. Like, the Okada promo last night I thought was great. Like, obviously limited with the words, but he made them count, and I thought that was good, and you got the reaction of the crowd. Like, AEW is hot right now. And, like, whereas WWE right now really hasn't carried the momentum from Mania, we're just sort of like, oh, we got to get through the draft, we got to get through France, then we'll pick back up. I've been really enjoying AEW television the last few weeks.
Yeah, and Rampage.
Yes.
Well, first of all, we had 2 Rampages this week.
Yes.
Because we had the 3 hours on Saturday, and then we had the doubleheader again last night, and both were pretty good.
Well, I'll let you behind the curtain also. We do our matches of the week. Rampage usually doesn't get hit the play button. I'm like, I don't really need to watch it. I watched both. I was like, oh, there are matches there I'm interested in.
I've got a couple written down on match of the week as well. Like, it's but the part of that is, and I think that's going to kind of leak into what we're about to talk about. There wasn't a ton of wrestling in WWE this week, so that's I think those two things happen to go hand in hand. But again, what AEW is doing storytelling wise right now, this might be some of the best stories they've told since 2 years ago.
Yeah,
going into Double or Nothing. It feels like it's starting to pick up that same momentum. Again, some different characters are in place, but if they can continue that momentum for the rest of the month, because sometimes that's also been their issue. Now that we know what the World Championship match is going to be, now that we know what the International Championship match is going to be, we know what the TBS Championship match is going to be, the Women's World Championship. So once those have been established, sometimes they run out of gas before we hit the pay-per-view.
Right.
So now that's going to be the test over the next 3 weeks, is can they keep that momentum storyline-wise with all these things they've now established?
Well, I think you bringing it up might be PTSD at this point, but after Double or Nothing is Forbidden Door. And that's when they sort of lost that momentum 2 years ago when they were so hot.
They did.
So
they did, but they seemed to learn some of that lesson last year, where they did a better job of mixing.
There have been rumors of like the CMLL involvement. I don't know how much work visas has sort of hampered those plans. So I'm just, I guess, cautiously optimistic right now.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see. Let's get to Double or Nothing first. Again, with AEW, it's more like taking it one show, one day, 1 week at a time.
But they also, I mean, you mentioned the Rampages, Collision also. They all of a sudden just got guys back this week. Like Ray Phoenix on Saturday, Roosh on Saturday. The Grizzled Young Veterans are just on the show Saturday. So, like, they just keep adding to the roster and not making a big deal of it.
I forgot about the Ray Phoenix match. I'm glad you mentioned that. I got to write that down for later.
Do you remember who he faced? That's the hard part. You got 40 minutes left.
All right, let's move on. The other top 3 stories in the world of professional wrestling. We call it the 3 count here on GKW. Brian, what do we have this week at number 1?
All right, in the world of WWE, it was Draft Week Friday night on SmackDown, Monday night on Raw. Let's fill in the blank. The WWE Draft was blank.
Boring.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, it was. I mean, I understand what they're going for, and I like the effort that they put in. But the reason why we get excited about the NFL draft is because the possibilities seem endless, right? So for example, I'm in Milwaukee. On our show on ESPN Milwaukee, we talk a lot, obviously, about the Packers. So leading up to the draft, are they going to take safety? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? And there are so many different options. Obviously, they end up going offensive line. But there are just so many options. They could do this, they could do that. And ultimately, when there are only really 2 choices, Raw or SmackDown, like, it just isn't as inherently exciting because, like, and also you've made, and not necessarily Hunter, but you kind of have as well. Yeah. You've been complicit in this. The draft hasn't really meant anything. They don't really stick to the brands. Like, they can, if you have an idea for, it'd be great if this guy from SmackDown could face this guy from Raw. Well, guess what? You figure it out, and you end up telling that story anyway. So the draft is kind of meaningless.
Another note, don't forget there can still be trades. The rosters do not lock until Monday.
That's correct. The only thing to me that's worth it in the draft, what's kind of cool, because again, and it's nice to see, like, Caleb Williams in tears after being the number 1 pick, right? He's the number 1 pick. He's in tears because, like, the emotions overcome it. Like, Randy Orton's not going to cry. Bianca Belair's not crying because she's the number 1 pick. She's already, like, main evented WrestleMania. Like, she doesn't need this doesn't mean that much. However, the NXT call-ups, that's the only thing to me that was pretty cool during the draft, is the fact that you got to see some of those people realize their dream of, yes, they're in the WWE right now, but now they get the call-ups, Lyra Valkyria. Like, that was a cool moment. I'm trying to think of what are the other women that they had from Friday night that got drafted, that she was wearing the Raw hat, so they're borrowing things from the draft. So to me, like, the NXT stuff was cool. Everything else, I can pretty much leave it.
But even that, some of the NXT stuff's had the legs cut out. Like Carmelo and Dragunov being called up would have been cool, but we've seen them on the shows before. We saw Dragunov on the Raw after, and Carmelo got an opportunity where I wouldn't say he quite delivered. A little bit of a botch there that was pretty prominent. If you saw that with Cody on Friday. Mm-hmm. So, like, I would fill in the blanks. It's not necessary anymore. And it's because of the past and because of just the way they do it they try to explain their way. Like, well, you want to pick your own guys also and protect them. And, like, looking at, like, the top names, Braun Breaker, Sheamus, Damage Control, Carmelo, Nia, like, those are the top names that switch brands. Who knew what show any of those people were on beforehand? Like, you watch, most people are watching both. We're not at the point now where people are only watching SmackDown or only watching Raw. Business is good to where I don't know if we even need a brand split anymore when it comes to the WWE.
I mean, probably not, but then you'd have to probably shrink the product a little bit and get rid of some of the championships that you have. Mostly, I guess you'd have to have one world champion, one men's champion, champion, instead of having, a world championship on both for both the men and women. But yeah, I'd be okay with that. You could talk me into that being a good idea. It just doesn't. The draft, again, some of the bits are funny. The Dudleys coming out, pretending, I can't really see. You put on the glasses. Okay. I mean, I am a mark for any time Ron Simmons gets to say damn. Sure. Like that's always going to bring a chuckle. And really that was the only real draft storyline that they played into was Drew McIntyre being pissed off that he wasn't a higher draft pick. And that Punk went before him. Again, minor, don't necessarily need it to continue that feud. But that's about the only thing that they use storyline-wise.
And the LWO one, where they're like, oh, Carlito attacked Dragon Lee and, might be out, but they all got drafted together. And it's like, what? And at least they explained Roman. Like, they tried this year, which I give them credit for, but it just felt all unnecessary.
So what they needed to do there, if you're keeping Carlito in the LWO, you needed for them to be drafted and then do the reveal. Because then it's like, now you're stuck, right? Because guess what? Like, before they got drafted as well, Imperium kicked out Giovanni. Right. And he wasn't drafted as part of that group. So there's some inconsistencies there that you could have easily cleaned up. Look, I understand you want to keep telling the Carlito story. I get that. Sure. Yeah, sure. Let's keep telling that one. But let's try to, it almost seems like they're cutting their, they're just shooting themselves in the foot for no reason whatsoever. Like, you have some momentum going, but now since Mania, okay, we got to tread water until we get to the draft. We don't want to tell anything super meaningful because guys and girls could be flipping around. We could be doing some different things. So now it just kind of feels like they're treading water. And these shows were largely skippable this week.
Yes.
Largely
there
skippable.
There was 20 minutes of wrestling on SmackDown Friday. The Adam Copeland-Buddy Matthews match from last night was longer than all of the wrestling combined in the 2-hour SmackDown on Friday.
Yeah, again, bringing back I appreciate the effort, but if they never did another WWE draft, I'd be fine.
Yes.
I'd be perfectly fine because it just felt like a waste of a week where just nothing was really accomplished. Nothing was really advanced. I mean, I guess the advanced, but again, the draft was front and center and it overshadowed the contract signing. It overshadowed, which was also kind of weird. It overshadowed the Carlito being the actual person who attacked Dragon Lee.
But I don't get why they put themselves in this corner. Like, Hunter, there's no league calendar. You didn't have to have the draft this week before Backlash when you have that weird, what are we doing right now?
But they're trying to capitalize on the NFL draft, right?
Sure.
Although going head to head with it is certainly a choice. On Friday night, it's certainly a choice. So keeping that momentum going and you've already established, okay, so I want to go, especially with Monday night, because I guess they were able to ride a decent rating. I don't remember what it was. I just kind of saw the headline. But if that's important to them of hitting a decent number and kind of, it happened on Raw, but you can't do the draft this Friday because, you're going to be in France and you've got the pay-per-view on Saturday.
I don't know. I just think there's a better way to do it, like making it after, moving the pay-per-view. It's just this weird no man's land. And I'm sure they believe right now they can do no wrong. But Mania was a month ago, and Mania when business was hot and everything was great and everything was telling stories, and injuries play into that. It just feels like we've come down a lot since a month ago of Mania. It's just, I don't know, it's just filling time right now. And even Saturday feels like one of those glorified house show pay-per-views.
Oh, most of their international ones have been. When they leave North America, most of, again, Clash of the Castle, up to and including the ending that apparently wasn't supposed to make television, was just a glorified house show. Right? Yeah. A lot of these, and that's what I'm expecting Clash at the Castle to be this year. That's what I'm expecting Backlash in France when they, do these different ones, one in Germany. I'm not expecting big things to be happening here. even eliminate. I mean, at least Elimination Chamber, because it's leading into Mania, doesn't feel like that, even though it was down in Perth, and it was on at a funky time. But yeah,
at least Elimination Chamber, you had like storytelling that was needed. Like whoever won those going to Mania, it was a big part of that. Saturday, like Cody and AJ will deliver in the ring. Like there's no doubt about that. The rest of the show, like, all right. I mean, I guess seeing Tama in a WWE ring for the first time will be cool. Bianca and Jade, I assume, will win the tag titles and then eventually split down the line. But the rest of the show is just whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were past that. Like, I thought we were past that from a WWE sense of things.
Yeah, obviously not. We're not past that. But again, look, there are going to be lulls in the calendar. There always will be. When there's no off season, there are always going to be lulls. And all I'm saying is once they return after Saturday, they got to pick it back up.
Yes.
They got to start picking it back up. What do we have at number 2?
All right. With credit to WWE Stats on Twitter for this one. So a mistake on Raw led to this, where they said CM Punk is a WWE Grand Slam champion. He's actually not. So WWE Stats tweeted out 9 current active wrestlers that are 1 title away from being Grand Slam winners. Who is next? And that list includes Braun Strowman, Carlito, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Sheamus, and Shinsuke Nakamura.
First of all, if you're unfamiliar with what a Grand Slam is, it doesn't make a lot of sense, so stay with me. Because if you've won 2 world championships, it doesn't matter. You just need one of the world championships. Then you need the 2 mid-card belts. So again, if you're someone like CM Punk, who's won a world heavyweight championship and won a WWE championship, you're not a Grand Slam champion because you need to have the IC title and the US title along with a tag team championship run at some point in your career.
It's hitting for the cycle in baseball. If you have 2 world titles, that's 2 home runs. That doesn't count in the cycle. That's how it works. Yeah,
apparently. By the way, but if you have 2 doubles, it's not like you need 2 doubles? I don't understand.
One's a double, one's a single, however you look at it.
Okay, all right, okay. Again, doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I don't understand why we can't count it, but it's not the way the rules work, all right?
Right.
By the way, The Miz is a 2-time Grand Slam champ.
That is.
So the next one, I think we can eliminate 2 right off the top that are never going to be Grand Slam champs. And that would be Carlito, who needs a world championship. So sorry, Carlito. Like, it's been fun with you back, but you're just never going to win a world championship. And as much as it pains me to say it, we can also eliminate Shinsuke Nakamura because he's never winning a world championship.
Yeah, I feel like that dream ended when Okada signed with AEW. Because I feel like a lot of the Shinsuke momentum was, look, we know how to book Japanese wrestlers. It's like, oh, he's not coming here? Like, sorry.
We'll call you when we need you, Shin. So it seems like to me, if I start going through this list, the one that makes the most sense, if Cena actually does come back for a run, maybe him ending up with the Intercontinental Championship.
Okay.
No, instead of giving him his 17th world title, maybe they give him a Grand Slam instead. Because, again, as much as they made about him not winning a singles televised match in like 1,000 days or whatever it's been, tough to do that. Have him lose on television again, and then have him come back and be a contender for a 17th world championship. So I think if they heat him up and he becomes an IC champ, I think that is, to me, that seems pretty realistic.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. And I think you look at this list and it's tough because you have the Carlitos and the Shins where you look at it like, all right, that's never going to happen. But I think there are a good amount that you can say, all right, I can see that down the line. Sheamus needs the IC title. Braun needs the US title. Drew needs the US title. Lashley needs the tag titles. And then even Cody and Punk, who both need the US titles, like a year from now, maybe you don't rule that out. And whether that's first, it depends on these other guys. But Sheamus as an IC champion just seems to make sense. It seems to be like one of those belts that you would assume he's already won. But as he's involved with Drew and the Sammy stuff plays out, Mania next year, like I don't know if any of these guys are happening in the next month or so, but Sheamus a year from now winning the IC title is not crazy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it'd be tough for Punk to win. Like, again, they're going to keep the U.S. title on, on the respective on Logan Paul for the foreseeable future. I don't think he's going on a 600-day run, but for the foreseeable future, he's still going to be the champ. So for like Punk to win the U.S. Championship, well, I guess they're even on different brands, so it would seem like it'd be impossible for Punk to do that.
It matters a lot.
Who knows if it does? I'm assuming it doesn't because it never has. But Bobby Lashley winning a tag championship kind of also seems like it could be possible just because he's in a faction now. And if they really wanted to get him, if this was something, I guess, if it was important to WWE, if it was important to Bobby, like you could easily have the Street Profits win the tag championships and then just freebird rule Bobby into it. The way that, like what they did with the New Day. Because the New Day had, any three of them could defend. And if you wanted to do something like that, I think you could with Bobby. I see that as very possible. Again, Cody at some point now winning the U.S. Championship seems very possible.
Sure.
So I would say a lot of these seem to be within reach.
And even the Lashley one, the Street Profits breaking up has been a rumor forever, even though when we had Angelo Dawkins on this show, he seems to have zero interest in being a singles wrestler. But, if they break up and one of them branches off, Lashley fills in, that could make sense storyline-wise.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, there are ways to do that. But, again, I think in terms of the first one, I don't see Sheamus becoming a champion anytime soon. I don't see Braun winning the U.S. Championship anytime soon. Drew is the U.S. champ. I don't see it either. Again, the one that could
something if they're not going to give him the world title again.
Sure, but also, I don't know. I think this thing with Punk could last a while.
Sure,
away from the championship because I'm still not sick of it.
Agreed.
Him being pissed off up in the box as Punk is delivering a promo and trying to do it in less time than Drew McIntyre's world championship reign was gold. It was fantastic. It was one of the very few highlights of WWE television this week.
Agreed. The only issue right now with that feud is we're months away from a payoff. Both of them are on the shelf right now, and it's one of the best stories they're telling.
Yeah. That is the tough part of the whole thing. And how about CM Punk wearing a shirt from over a decade ago? That was his shirt that he had before he left in 2013.
Was that just that's on the top of the clothes pile? Is that why he grabbed it? I don't
know. I don't know. That's the one he decided to wear. So in terms of the one happening the soonest, I still come back to Cena because I think I could easily make the case of Cena coming back, being an IC champ, and then whenever he just, has his last match, Cena is, to me, an old school guy. He's done plenty of jobs now since he's been in and out of WWE. He puts somebody else over. And, maybe he's the one who ends up putting Chad Gable over. Who knows?
Do you see any of these happening by the end of the calendar year?
Cena's the only one I think is possible. It's the only one that's possible.
See, I think Lashley is the only one that makes the most sense storyline-wise. I feel like Sheamus could be next, but I feel like Lashley, the clearest path, I guess, to a tag title because they've shown they don't really care about the tag title, so they could just be a throwaway, and then they could say, hey, it's a Grand Slam champion, and sort of tout Lashley because of that.
What brand did they get? I don't even know what brand they got drafted to.
Good question. They did not switch brands. They're not on my list of that, so
they're still on SmackDown.
Yes.
Okay.
AOP went to Raw. I wrote that.
Yeah.
down.
Well, okay. You know what? It's not like the tag team champions on either brand are super strong right now. So
right,
you could take off the tag team championships at any point and not have a problem.
You can hot potato that, no problem.
Yeah, no issue whatsoever. What do we got at number 3?
All right. Last night on Dynamite, we found out who Swerve Strickland will be defending the title against at Double or Nothing, and it'll be Christian. What is your interest level in Swerve versus Christian?
If you'd asked me this question probably a year ago, I'd be, what? Be very confused.
Uh-huh.
But my interest level is pretty damn high. Yeah. It is really high because Christian has done some of his best work over the last year as the patriarchy in AEW. And even the way he was to explain storyline wise why Christian's getting this, it's fantastic. Oh, Jacksons are doing whatever they want. They took out Tony. We don't need no rankings. Here's Christian. And for Christian to go out there and then just pop him right away with the microphone, fantastic. Bring his daughter into it. Yep. Hell yeah. Like, okay, well, all right. I guess Swerve's got both his parents. His dad's still alive. You know what I can do? Well, Swerve, when I kill you, your daughter's going to be proud of me. Like, just, again, it's just great character work. And I also I did not think that I would like Mama Wayne as much as I do in this group. Like, the number of times that it looks like where she stands in, like, as the woman, like, oh, I'm a woman, you're not going to hit me. Just like the defiant look that she has on her face as she stepped to Swerve last night was fantastic. And I trust Christian. Like, this is, to me, a great feud for Swerve to start. Because, like, and I think we kind of talked about this a little bit with Cody after he won the WWE Championship. All right, what are you going to do? How are you going to tell these stories? How are you going to establish them? Because now, and Cody's even alluded this in some of his promos, about how important it is now. Okay, now you have it. Now what do you do with it?
Right.
And so the first couple of challengers always, have to be people who have been established in the industry, but aren't really a threat. The outcome's really not questioned. Like, Christian's not going to beat Swerve at Double or Nothing. But I am going to be happy as hell by the time we get there that Swerve is just beating the crap out of Christian. Like, because that's how good Christian is at getting heat. And, like, to the point where, they were in Canada, so, Christian being Canadian,
sure,
but they were cheering him last night. Like, right. Christian was receiving cheers for everything. Like, he again, told the man he was going to kill him and basically adopt his daughter, and that's getting, yep.
Right.
Tell him, Christian. Tell him.
But he still turned him back. It was cheap, but like mentioning the Winnipeg Jets, he was able to get the booze also. He knew what he was doing. But
again, that's what he's been so good at, because he has been so good that the professional wrestling fans just respect how good he is and start to cheer him because he's so good at it. And then he's like, no, you can't cheer me. So then he has to revert to cheap heat, and everyone's like, okay, we got to boo you now because you're ripping on the local sports team. He knows what he's doing. Like, okay, I'm getting too many cheers. All right, take the shot that I can. Get him to turn on me again. It's just a masterclass, and to me, it is a perfect first opponent for Swerve to establish himself.
Yeah, and it's not one I thought of. Like, they teased they were going to announce it last night, and the Bucks did the whole thing where they were acting like it was going to be Kenny, which I thought was really well done. But the mic work they're going to do against each other, and even last night where Christian got on the mic, but they didn't really go back and forth, extended it a little bit also, where we know what Swerve can do in the ring. We know how over Swerve is. This is going to get him over more. Like, him stopping Christian is going to get him over even more. And I think also from a personal standpoint, I was actually listening today, Swerve had Adam Copeland on his Swerve City podcast the day of Dynasty. So they were talking like, hey, next time I might be a world champion. And Swerve's like a huge fan of Edge and Christian. And like, those are the guys that like he sort of modeled himself after. He said a lot of his gear is based on Edge's stuff. So I think on a personal level, that'll be pretty cool from him. But it's also, and we talk about rewarding guys a lot, it's a hell of a reward for Christian because he's done amazing work in everything he's been given so far in AEW. Give the man a world title main event. Like, yes, we know he's not going to win, but to give him that big spot, it's well earned by him right now.
Oh, without a doubt. And especially it being, at this point, I would say they have two big pay-per-views. Mm-hmm. I used to, and I've argued on the show that All Out was, to me, their WrestleMania. That's no longer the case because that's buried Backlash. After another pay-per-view. Right. Yeah, now it's Backlash. And the only time Backlash is big is when it's in Puerto Rico. Right. And Bad Bunny's on the card. But
that's all it takes.
To me, like, their two big shows are this one, or Double or Nothing, which they're making a big deal out of 5-year anniversary. This is where it all started. They're starting to kind of make that build of how important it is, and clearly All In at Wembley. Like, those are their two big shows. So to give Christian a main event spot at one of those two shows, yes, he's not going to win, but he's in the main damn event, and he's going to be well featured. Like, because at this point, Christian doesn't need a world championship run. He's so well established in the world of professional wrestling. It's a great decision. And you mentioned at the start of the show, like, AEW's on a heater right now. They're hot. Yeah. And it's because of decisions like this that I wasn't thinking about, and they kept Christian away just long enough where you weren't even thinking about him as a possibility. So then all of a sudden, when you see the numbers start counting down on the screen, you're going, "Oh boy!" But then you get excited because, like,
Right.
"Oh, this is going to be
There we
good."
go.
Christian, what are you going to do, buddy? I can't wait to hear what you do. And I thought it really ended up delivering last night.
And I think even like you mentioned the promo, like I respect when wrestling companies don't insult our intelligence. Like instead of us sitting here saying like, well, wait a minute, like didn't Swerve go into Nick Wayne's house and bloody him? Like Christian sort of saying like, hey, that's why I'm upset. That goes a long way as opposed to just ignoring it. I'm like, well, that was almost a year ago. Maybe they won't remember. Like I give them respect for that.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I completely forgot that they lost in a coffin match as a tag team to Sting.
I
and
agree.
Darby.
Same.
Completely forgot about that, but Christian still brought it up. I'm like,
Right.
wait, what is he talking about? Like, I had to go look it up last night after the show. Like, what one was he talking about? Again, that's Christian bringing his professional wrestling experience to the table as a storyteller.
Right.
You know, stepping up and going, hey, this is how, you know, we need to be able to do this. And like, I'm also intrigued after Swerve's promo saying, hey, I'm not coming alone next week. Are we actually going to see the Mogul Embassy? Is that an actual, because the Mogul Embassy for the most part has been ignored since Swerve went, you know, and did this. Yes, I guess you see Nana come out with, you know, with Cage sometimes, but is he going to reunite with Cage? Is he talking about something else? Like, I am intrigued about when Swerve says, hey, next week I'm not showing up alone, because he knows he needs to match the patriarchy with Wayne and Kill Switch.
But Mogul Embassy still feels like they're heels. I mean, is it Keith Lee again? I know he's hurt, but I think like, could there be something there and reheating him and getting some, you know, forward progress for Keith Lee as much as they've wasted him?
I don't think you can put those two back together on the same side. Like, because they've tried to like ignite that feud at least 5 times.
So, and
that just hasn't caught fire.
Go the other way. It's like, all right, we can't put you guys against each other. What about together? Let's try that. You gotta go back the other way.
But again, like it could literally be anybody. You know, the possibilities to me again are endless. And that to me is a little bit exciting of, okay, who's he going to show up with? Yeah. My guess it would have to be somebody from Mogul Embassy, but maybe it's not.
No, but there's possibilities, and I think those two will be awesome. Like, we gave them credit the last pay-per-view. The fact that they're setting up the card early is always a because we're at 3 or 4 matches already. Women's World, International.
So we have the women's World, the International, men's, TBS.
Oh, TBS, yeah.
So yeah, at least 4 that I can think of off the top of my head.
And we're 3 weeks out. Like that, I give them credit for that. Like, again, making the right decisions where you're getting excited about things. Like, you assume the Bucks will be in a match. Like, maybe we'll get a Jack Perry thing. Like, going. Just keep it going.
What? Did they make it? No, they're doing Trent versus Orange. I don't know why they're doing Trent versus Orange on Dynamite. I don't know why they wouldn't save that for the pay-per-view. Unless they do a thing where like Trent just squirms out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like they announce the match, Trent makes sure the match doesn't happen or gets disqualified early and, you know, continues to build the heat on him. But also, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Trent going forward. Like, but if he got a win over Orange Cassidy, that would be pretty big at the pay-per-view. So again, I don't think they necessarily do that one at Dynamite. But again, AEW building a lot of momentum going forward. And like, can you imagine yourself asking this question a year ago?
No. And it's a world title match. Like, just a random.
This is going to main event. This is main eventing the 5th anniversary of the foundation of the company. The first ever event in the history of AEW. This is what the main event is going to be. Swerve versus Christian.
Of course. Like, yes. Like, I'm very excited about that. Like, it's awesome. Like, well-deserved for 2 guys that have busted their ass for this company.
Absolutely. What do we have in news and notes this week, Brian? All
right. Your boy Ray Phoenix and his brother Penta have themselves a big show coming up that they're actually going to be running. They will be hosting the Republic of Lucha 7, and it'll take place at the old Lucha Underground Temple. For those that are fans of Lucha Underground, some names already announced for the show: Takeshita, Brian Cage, Nick Nemeth, and Thunder Rosa. No air date yet, but it will air on Triller TV.
Hell yeah. Sign me up, man. Like, Lucha Underground was, I feel it was super hot at the time, but it was also, again, underground. Like, not enough people knew about it, but It was so cool. Like it's legitimately sick, and I cannot wait for this show. This is going to be awesome.
I mean, Swerve was working masked, right? Like, wasn't he a masked wrestler?
Yes,
so like he's evolved to this, like translating back to the last question, and for them to run this, where I'm curious to see what it does now, where you have alternatives, because I think back then it was like, hey, it's non-WWE, of course we're going to be into it, but you got some pretty big names, and I feel like that's going to be a pretty decent card.
Yes, yeah, and again, like whatever they decide, like the fact that Ray's back and healthy, very excited, and him and Penta together, they just, I trust them putting together and putting on a good show.
I believe they're also, for House of Glory, Cinco de Mayo this weekend, those two working against each other. So
yes, brother versus brother.
Yeah, so fire up that Triller TV app, formerly Fight, and watch that. Some AEW injury news. Hobbs suffered an injury in his match with Moxley. It did require surgery. That'll put him out for an extended amount of time, according to Fightful. Also, Jason Solomon reporting MJF had to undergo shoulder surgery. He was hoping to avoid that. That does mean he will be out of action even longer than anticipated.
Yeah, unfortunate for both of them. First for Hobbs, because I felt like he's somebody that finally felt like he had a little bit of forward momentum. You know, that match versus Mox was really good. And I don't think he knew he was going to lose, but I thought he came out still looking pretty strong. So for him to have to go through that and have surgery is a bummer. Bummer for MJF as well. But I mean, AEW is doing well without him. And just whenever he is finally healthy enough to come back, that's just going to make AEW stronger. Unfortunately, you know, again, I think anytime you hear people trying to avoid surgery, I get why you want to. But a lot of times, you know, you're able to come back better, stronger, if you do indeed get the surgery.
The whole thing now, though, is like the MJF Cole like payoff, like it almost feels not worth it anymore.
No, it's done. It's done.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate because they both ended up having really serious injuries. Because and we've talked about this with Undisputed Kingdom. Like Roderick Strong's doing the best he can, doing the best he can. It just. At the end of the day, it's still Roderick Strong and the Kingdom, so
yeah,
don't really care.
Some WWE contract signings. Fightful reporting that Eric Rowan has signed a new deal with the WWE. Also, as broken on Instagram by Dwayne Johnson, Drew McIntyre has re-signed with the WWE. Meltzer says 3-year deal worth about $4 million each year, and McIntyre told the Pat McAfee show he was never going anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't think he would be going anywhere because, again, you just look at how AEW treats big guys. So, but obviously it was a priority, and the fact that The Rock is sending him a sword, like clearly The Rock's pretty affectionate about the guy too, which leads you to wonder. Even though Drew McIntyre hates the bloodline, could we see Drew McIntyre and Dwayne working hand in hand? Final boss with, you know, maybe Dwayne is able to help Drew McIntyre get a world championship.
And Drew now, like, imagine that story. You can tell people that The Rock sent you a sword. Like, not many people can say that.
No. In fact, I'm betting it's just one. Although maybe Dwayne's just sending swords all over Hollywood. Who could say for sure? When it comes to Eric Rowan, I'm intrigued. I think he was supposed to be a part of whatever Bray Wyatt was going to do once he returned, kind of continuing the Uncle Howdy stuff. And there have been whispers and rumblings that, his that Bray's brother Bo Dallas is going to kind of continue with some of that. So it would make sense to fold in Eric Rowan, who was obviously so involved with the Wyatt family.
Yep, feels like that's the route they're going. Finally, news and notes. Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern in France. It is Backlash, the card right now. Damian Priest defends the world title against Jey Uso. Cody Rhodes defends the undisputed Universal title against AJ Styles. Triple threat match for the women's title, Bayley, Tiffany Stratton, and Naomi. Women's tag titles, Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade. And Kevin Owens and Randy Orton team up to take on Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga.
Yeah, doubt I end up watching it live. We've reached the portion of the year, especially here in Wisconsin, where it's nice outside. I'm going to want to be outside. But again, what part of their reasoning to being more open, the way that like Nick Khan and Triple H have talked about this, of doing more of the international shows. It allows them to have that footprint, and especially for some of these smaller shows, when they talk about the Big Four, they want to keep them in North America. But for some of the smaller shows, like Backlash and Clash, all the ones that they're doing internationally, they don't care they don't care if you watch it live, but enough people are going back and watching them once they're archived on Peacock that it becomes worth it for WWE to do the international, and continue to grow the fan base, because that's how you grow the business at this point. So it makes sense. I won't be watching live, but I will go back and watch it because there are some intriguing. I think there's going to be some fun matchups there. I don't think we get really any title changes except for the tag, the women's tag, for the women's tag. Outside of that, like Damien's going to retain, Cody's retaining. Yeah,
Bailey should retain.
I would think so. I think that's why Naomi's in that match.
Yeah. You protect 50 times.
Yep, correct. Yeah. Correct, sir.
Yes, and I think also they're showing these international shows, like, people are going to show up, they're going to get their money, like, they don't have to roll out this wonderful card. But hey, a card with both world titles defended. Like, outside of Mania, it's been a long time.
It's a rarity in WWE. Yeah. You're getting both world championships defended? Hell yeah, brother. Yeah. What did you have on your list for matches of the week?
All right. Pretty AEW heavy because, well, there wasn't much WWE wrestling.
I don't think I have a WWE match. Like, I wanted, when it got announced, I really wanted Carmelo versus Cody be on this list.
Yes.
And it didn't end up on the list.
I wanted Sammy versus Big Bronson, and then the ending and stuff, it just felt...
Oh, yeah, because they just did a lot of schmozzy. Yeah, like, and it got off to that good start, and then Gable comes in and...
Yeah. So, what I do have, though...
Same thing with Tiffy and Naomi.
Yes, 100%. Like, there was potential there, and maybe we get a good match on Saturday, but 20 minutes on Friday of WWE wrestling, and we think Cody's okay, and he was just selling the elbow injury, but not quite sure what those two were planning on that misstep. But was Cody supposed to catch Carmelo, and then the timing was off?
I don't think so. I think ultimately, I think it was supposed to be one of those spots where, you know, like, I guess it's more of an AEW or independent scene thing where you kind of like both go for the same move and come up empty. So I think that was
intentional.
But I think it was intentional that they missed. I don't think it was intentional to be that far spaced apart, because that was weird.
The timing was really off, and then Cody was supposed to catch him with a cutter. But the timing was not awful.
Like, it's certainly possible. Like, you could convince me into anything right now, but like the timing of like Hayes hitting the mat and then Cody launching himself, like the timing was so far off. You could convince me of like just about anything was supposed to happen there.
Yes, good effort by them. The matches that did hit on everything, though. Last night, Copeland versus Buddy Matthews. I feel like anytime Buddy Matthews is involved, like, it's a home run. Like, I wish they pushed the three of them to the moon even more so, but I love that last night. And then 2 from Saturday. Ray Phoenix versus TBD. I know you're still thinking. It was
you're not going to give me the name?
A Beast Mortos, better known as Black Torres. He recently switched his name in AEW. Love that.
I knew he's an ROH all the time. Yeah. He was wearing the bull mask. It was fun.
He switched his name, so I'll give you credit there. And then Swerve versus Claudio. Like, my God, like, the stomp off the chest and the uppercut, like, who thinks that's possible?
Yeah, again, well, because so you have 3 guys there that you listed. So Ray Phoenix, Phoenix's spot where he like climbed on top of him and then like used his shoulders and kicked himself off and like kicked him in the back of the head. Like, again, just the offense that Phoenix and Claudio and Swerve, like, they all come up with, and they just, I've always said this about Ray Phoenix, and it's why he's one of my favorites. Like, usually there's one move he does where I've never seen it before. And that was the one where he got up on the shoulders, kicked him in the back of the head. So that's with Phoenix. And yes, putting Claudio and Swerve on free television. Thank you, Tony, I guess. Because that was
good palate cleanser after a terrible Heat Celtics. It worked out very nicely there. Like, I know they were hoping for a better build-in, but when the Heat and the Celtics didn't really work out. But like, even the confidence in Claudio is a little bit of muscular side. To think that his chest won't just collapse as another grown man jumps on it. He's like, oh no, you can bounce off and then I'll hit you. Like, defies logic.
And again, the pacing at the end really picked up. Like, it was really good. I enjoyed Willow versus Sky Blue, the main event of Rampage, in the False Count Anywhere. I can't remember what they called it. But But yeah, it was really good. I thought, especially again for the women to get that opportunity to have the hardcore match, I thought, and I really enjoyed the seriousness out of Willow.
Yep.
Like how pissed off she was. Like she didn't do her regular like little leg kick at the end of the like kind of break in her opening. Nope, she was all business, going right to the ring, and I think that kind of set the tone.
And that was a good blow off for those two. Like they've been going for a while. Like they've been giving Sky the opportunity. Julia Hart is out hurt also. Like it was a good blow off for those two.
Yes, absolutely. And I also enjoyed the parking lot match that they did with the best friends. It wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be, but again, they had kind of tipped their hand that it wasn't going to be very long. Right. When you've got our guy, Daddy Magic, going, you got to do this quick. You don't know what's going to happen. You got to finish these quick. So I think they kind of tipped the hand that it wasn't going to be a super long match, but I thought it was a really good way to continue to push Trent. And assuming he eventually goes up over Orange Cassidy and they continue to push Trent, I think that could get interesting.
And I will say I'm intrigued by the Don Callis part of this right now.
Oh, very intrigued.
So good job again by them.
Yeah, because it makes you wanting more. It makes you're walking away from Dynamite last night going, Don Callis, really?
Yeah, like where are they going?
Yeah. I mean, it could just be a swerve of trying to, okay, he's using Orange to get to Trent, and then Trent ends up, because again, Trent being a heel, like Don Callis, much like Paul Heyman in WWE, like just the mere mention of his name makes you a heel.
Yeah,
like if you walk away, like, yeah, just the mere mention, just him walking away with his arm around you. I'm not sure if Orange Cassidy is a heel now.
Right.
Very possible. Could be. Like you have made contact. You have made physical contact with Don Callis. The heelness could just rub off.
But Orange can't be a heel ever, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think ever. That won't work.
I don't think I can't imagine how that works.
Like, did they give a thumbs down instead? Like, I can't even do it. There we go. Like,
but you have to do it like where you're barely moving your thumbs.
Gravity like there.
Yeah. So like, I don't know how that works out for him. Yeah, that's all I had in the matches of the week. Yeah, no, again, it's potential in WWE, but everything was draft related. So
yeah. And awesome to see Roosh back, the formerly known Danny Burch. Sorry you had to be on the receiving end of that, but Roosh back is good for everyone except the guys he has to face.
Except for the guys that they decide to bring in and squash them. Yes, that is
good for us.
That is absolutely true. Yes, hey, look, I'm not complaining. Again, with Roosh, because it's still real to him. Damn it, it's the stiffest. God, can you imagine Roosh versus Ospreay?
Oh my. I mean, that's possible now.
That's gonna be a fun rampage.
God, I'll watch that one.
Yeah, that one would probably make the cut as well. Again, thank you to everybody for commenting, subscribing on YouTube. Up over 1,000 followers now, so make sure you check us out if you haven't. Comment, subscribe, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. Wrestling in good spotlight right now as AEW builds towards their next pay-per-view of Double or Nothing. Of course, this weekend, Backlash in France for WWE. One thing's for sure, we'll break it all down next week right here